May I introduce you to my wife, Colette?
And you hurt, and you hurt. And you think that by saying that's what men do, you clear it all away. Went into those books. And you thought that I could never break free.
And the hand that holds the pen writes history.
It's not a standard biopic. I mean, I think partly, I always have a problem with biopics that try and deal with an entire life. You could do many films about Colette, and you should do many films about Colette. You know, what I loved about this script, and hopefully the film, is that it was dealing with a really specific moment and a really specific relationship. I think also, you know, the idea that she was sort of so progressive for her time, or maybe not. I mean, I think it was the Belle Epoque was an extraordinary moment in history, you know, so I think she was very much part of that, but also sexually very liberated, which was sort of fascinating when you think about that era. I think you think about men's sexuality, you don't necessarily think about women's. So I think, you know, the fact that she had a transgender lover with Missy, the fact that she was sleeping with both men and women, you know, I thought that was fascinating. The nature of their relationship being in some ways an open relationship. He had a mistress, long-term mistress, and she had a long-term partner who was outside that marriage. You know, that's kind of a fascinating place for drama to sit. And then again, you know, the idea of the fact that she became this kind of music hall actress, kind of pantomime artist in the middle of that, and really turned her back on high society and went, no, I'm gonna go off and sort of live in poverty but be on the stage and do this. You know, I think she was quite a character. The wonderful thing about being an actor is that you get to kind of live in somebody else's relationship and try and figure it out, try and go, why didn't she leave? Why did she say yes to this? Why was she all right with this? You know, what was the dynamic between them that allowed this situation to happen? It's one of the things that I love about my job. So these were just a great, strange pair that created something extraordinary. And I think, you know, as much as she very much wrote the books, the first few at least, he definitely edited, and he definitely shaped, and he definitely gave her both the confidence to write, but also I think the notes were probably great, and then she outgrew him, and he obviously couldn't handle that. And also it was such a huge success. What happens to somebody when you've taken credit for something that you didn't do? And then obviously as it goes on and the success becomes more and more and more, how do you backtrack? How do you go back on that lie and say, oh, actually it was my wife? You know, I mean, so it becomes something that's so huge within the relationship. Whatever the power dynamic is within the relationship shifts because you've got this horrific kind of secret and it's sort of bursting out of the edges, you know. It's kind of an incredibly dramatic setting. They were definitely a celebrity couple in a way that we would definitely recognise today. You know, they were a power couple together. They were constantly in newspapers, they were constantly creating scandal, they were talked about wherever they went. They also, you know, they had their own product line, so it's very much like your celebrity couples doing sort of, you know, perfume or whatever it is that they do. I mean, they did that. They had a Claudine line. I mean, Colette in her later life actually went on to be a makeup artist and have her own makeup line. So, you know, they were very aware of all of that, and they were very aware of how scandal helped as far as their publicity went and as far as sales of their books went. So they've very much used that. I think it's a fascinating story. I think they were a fascinating relationship. I think her work was extraordinary. You know, I mean, in some ways she is credited as creating the modern teenager. We didn't have the vocabulary to talk about that kind of point between girlhood and womanhood as teenagerdom, and that's what the Claudine novels were. That's what particularly the first Claudine novel was talking about a teenage girl and the sexual awakening of a teenage girl, which when you think of coming out of that kind of Victorian era of that virginal kind of, that idea that women don't have a sexuality, you know, she was the first one who was very much saying that they absolutely do, which of course is true. So I think from that kind of point of view, she was well and truly groundbreaking. Don West is wonderful. I mean, he's such perfect casting for Willie, which is a real surprise because Willie definitely, you know, he wasn't a looker, and Don's a very handsome man, so they sort of made him look as ugly, I think, as he could possibly look. Fat suits and very strange facial hair. Yeah, I mean, he's not at his sexiest, but I think the thing about Dom is that he is one of the most charming people I've ever met. He's a very sparkly magic man, Dom. And I think probably Willie was exactly the same. So I really, really, really enjoyed working with him. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful actor. And a very naughty human being. And how delicious. I've always loved Colette's writing. I was a big fan of Cherie and After Cherie. And I think she always came across as sort of a fascinating character. I didn't know anything about the first marriage, so I think this was a new story to me when I read it, and I just thought it was an interesting kind of look at both a relationship, the politics within a relationship, and then when you add creativity into that, and you add the kind of the complexity of the male-female relationship when the woman is sort of so much more talented than the man.